This is Brian Borrello. He has been on Alberta Street for as long or longer than Donna Guardino. Donna and Sal Guardino bought this building in 1996, and he was in the Quonset hut.
24th in Alberta. Rexall building. I lived upstairs.
Yeah, you lived up there, and your shop was down in the closet. So he's got a long history with Donna, and he could tell us all about his mini retrospective right here.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming. If you got to go, I understand it's an early day. We would cut out early, but thanks for coming and let me share my story. So like she said, I moved on to Alberta from New Orleans in 1996, the same time. There was a Lum next door, the Vietnamese paper lamp maker, Mary Topanya, mosaic tile artist. Handful of us, and Donna kind of started opening our doors, and the whole Last Thursday thing sort of evolved in away from that, you know. I was on the street for about 12 years, and so I tried to pull out some of the work that I would have made in my modest little Quonset hut over there. It's now the Alleyway Bar, I think it's called. So I tried to pull some stuff out that I would have made in that hut at the time. Now my shop's on Killingsworth and Greeley. Neon Jones is my neon shop you'll see it in the window if you go by. But I wanted to pull out, you know, kind of a range of work. So, and again, so Don and I were talking about this for how many years, right? Years. And so I figured, you know, let's do this, you know. So here we are. I wish Donna could be here, but try to get a show together that would be in the spirit of Donna. So so I kind of send my tentacles out into the world in a lot of different ways, you know. This is part of that production. I do public art. I do some renegade stuff that I'll share with you too, that you might have seen, might not know about, you know. But most of what you see is drawings and sort of artifacts of my production. As I mentioned, I do public art, which is kind of a different level of, I kind of think of it as my conversation with the world. So the public art is kind of like for strangers. It's kind of like a drive-by experience a lot of times, you know. I try to do it in multiple parts. One thing about my work is that I try to make multiple parts so it's not like a thing, so that it's more of a experience, something you can kind of get inside of and walk around, or things that will get revealed. The Rose Quarter Station, where I did the solar trees that light up at night, it's got cast old growth tree rings in the platform paving. It's also got green glass discs, but also blue and yellow discs that dapple you in sunlight, kind of a Seurat painting. So I try to make, you know, multiple parts, things that can be revealed over time, so it's not just a one-time experience. And with the public art, it sometimes takes years to do, you know, with committees and bureaucrats and whatnot. So I found that I was losing my spontaneity, and so I started putting up big sheets of paper on the wall and just grabbing a handful of charcoal and a pink pearl eraser and just going at it, right? And so this piece here, it's one of the early ones. That's from, I think, 1987 or so, right about the time I started doing public art. And as you can see, it's really worked, and I really tried to get into the black of it and the white of it, and kind of trying to stay with carbon-based materials. And as the drawings evolved, I kind of started using more problematic carbon-based materials like motor oil. I do prints on asbestos paper. Done projects with confiscated handguns given to the arts community to turn into, I think Greg Wilbur was one of those artists. And so trying to take problematic materials and then kind of turn shit into, like compost, into something beautiful, right? And so a lot of these pieces are going to have that kind of component. I'll tell you a story of a couple of those that have incorporated challenging materials. But again, these were at first sort of therapeutic, that allowed me to kind of be spontaneous and kind of work it. So I just pick a route. I kind of fancy the unseen, the things that are kind of underground or underfoot and not really recognized. Lately, I've been getting into more mycelial networks, mushrooms, things. Some of the pieces I've actually mushroom spores that have been fixed onto the piece itself, you know. So let's see. Grew up in New Orleans. I was a city kid, but on the weekends, every weekend, I'd go out with my grandpa or my uncle to Honey Island Swamp. We had a camp out there. We'd drive his old Army surplus Jeep out into the woods, or we'd take a pirogue, which is a little canoe, out into the swamps. And so I really became a very biophiliac, you know, in love with nature. Hunting, fishing, realized I didn't really like the kill, but I loved the hunt and the track and the being in nature. So that's kind of what's where my work comes from. As you can tell, I'm not really so interested in the human drama. My work is about other things, but also how we can connect and how we can create a more intimate relationship with nature and realizing things that aren't, maybe, something very beautiful there, like flowers. So in the 80s, I was worked in a foundry. I also was in school, and I had a really influential teacher, young guy who came in, Charles Ray. I don't know if you know Charles Ray, but he's now like high level, Venice Biennale, big high guy. But he was doing all this crazy body art, so it got me inspired. So I started using my body as a sculpture element, and that's kind of what I was doing in the 80s. I was doing kind of dangerous, crazy stuff with circles of fire and electricity and hanging from cranes. Probably the most notorious one was sleeping with pythons. It was 4 days in a cage in a bed with 2 Burmese pythons. Not very dangerous. The Burmese pythons were very gentle creatures, except when at one point I can feel them, they're constrictors, right? So I can feel them like doing this thing, and I look up, and it was in the French Quarter in New Orleans, tourists, and I look up, and there are these 4 Japanese tourists, and one of the guys got a pencil, and he's sticking the snake, trying to, get in to bite the man, whatever like this. So we threw him out. So anyway, that kind of stuff. I was doing these body pieces, but then I realized, man, I'm putting all this work into promotion and building this cage and this bed and this thing and stuff. And I realized I just need to put this into more productive and more long-lasting. So that's what kind of got me into the public art, was to be able to get stuff out into the world that had more lasting quality, that could last at least a decade or more, So again, the balance between the making of things. And there's a book floating around, I think you've got it right there. Let me just show you, because a couple of the pieces you see here are models for some of the bigger public art pieces. This is a piece in West Seattle I just finished called Cyanescence, and it's these kind of mushroom-themed pieces, light up at night, but they're a part of a rain garden that treats the drainage to protect it's part of a salmon restoration project in West Seattle. I started this about pandemic time, so it's taken me that long to finally just finish that. So some of these pieces you might have seen, that's on the I-205, that's on 22nd and 21st in Raleigh. Peninsula Crossing Trail, this is in Kuwait City. It's called Arlafaj. It represents the Kuwaiti national flower, which is like a little gold dandelion that carpets in February, it'll carpet the floor of the desert, really nice. Oregon City, the falls, commemorating the falls. They're getting ready to do a reclamation. The tribes are going to be reclaiming that in a way. But this is called Wind Witches. It's in Moses Lake, Washington, a community college, representing tumbleweeds. Wind Witches is these are twin, gateway sculptures for City of Tigard. So if you go to their little main street, it's pretty small, but at each end of Main Street, and these light up different colors by night. It's called Corlus. It represents the, the filbert flower, because this used to be like Grand Central for filbert harvest, growing, and also the train that would take it away. And this is at the Rose Quarter. Those are the ones down the street. And the Emir, as Jeffrey was kind of helping me handle this, is that somebody called, a design firm out of England called and wanted this, and they said, I'm not going to do that, but I'll do something similar. So I created this I try to work with solar, wind, LED lighting when possible. Zoo-Bomb bike rack downtown, lending library for children's bicycles. Zoo-Bombers take them down there and bomb the hill. And then this piece, this is called Queen Bee, and this is a 10-foot version that's down in Louisiana, down in New Orleans. So that's the model for that. So I just want to show that some of these pieces have a different kind of story. Let's see, stories. I have a neon shop. I work in neon. That was one of I realized as an artist, I'm going to need to make probably multiple income streams, right? So I worked in a foundry, but then I went to graduate school at Arizona State, and there was a neon shop, an old Mormon tube bender that was teaching at GI Bill. You learned it, an old timer, and that's what we call them, old timers. I'm a new old timer. But learned how to make neon, so that kind of it helped me pay off my student loan at the end of it, because I get to stay up all night and bend the tubing. So I've been working the neon. I had a neon shop there. It's called Neon Jones. So I love the neon, love working in lines of light through space. These are called life signs. So this piece, as well as the sort of sprout pieces, I call them life signs because it's the vernacular of signage, but also signs of life, whether it's the beating heart. Now this one, is intended to, I'm going to probably do a little bit, a duplicate of this with a little bit of outward stroke so that I can put it on. I've got an old timer that used to be part of like a old time, like a Times Square kind of, timer. So what I want to do is make it this sort of Frankenstein, so it's kind of, so it kind of this pomp, So that might evolve over time. So the neon, I love working different materials, bronze pieces. The story here, this little section here, is significant to me because as an artist, for a long time, until 2005, I kept a presence in New Orleans. I had a studio there. I was able to go back and forth, sort of like the way the New Orleans artist would have worked once upon a time, going upriver in the summertime when it got too hot to go paint the portraits of the whatever, and then come back down in the wintertime. And I was kind of doing that in Portland, and I was going to New Orleans in the fall when it gets gray here, and then I'd come back and forth. But in 2005, when the great federal flood of 2005 arrived, otherwise known as Katrina, my studio took about 6.5 feet of water. So lost a lot. Might have been merciful, wasn't maybe my best work, but it inspired me to make even better work. But this survived. So that drawing happened to be up on a platform, so that survived. That's mating frogs. It's called Ritual, and so that piece survived. It's one of the only drawings that survived. And then these bronzes were in a bunch of crates, and so anything that was steel was kind of rusted out because it had sat. I think I got there. It's August 26th, I think, or August 29th was the date, and I think I got there in like November by the time the water had gone down and everything was moldy and a big mess. I actually took everything and put it on the curb, and I took a picture of it, and I show it, and it's like, I call it my retrospective, my 20-year retrospective, courtesy Army Corps of Engineers. So, but anyway, these pieces survived, and the color, some of the colors was spectacular, and I call it the Katrina patina, because this was like these, these colors that had kind of emerged as I dug them out, I cleaned them up a little bit, but, they were definitely, they were funky. So anyway, that's those. Some of the other works that maybe came from my Alberta days. This piece, again, has kind of a story to it, and it kind of taps into this idea of using challenging materials. This is from 2010. And in 2010, as you might remember, there was the BP and their Deepwater Horizon oil spill, right? They never really stepped up to atone for that or do the stuff. As a matter of fact, I know somebody who was a worker in the field that was doing the restoration, and they could have capped it, should have capped it, didn't cap it because the capping method would have meant they couldn't go back in and go to that wellhead again. So anyway, the damage was significant. We did a fundraiser for the people that were involved, impacted by it, fishermen and whatnot. And so I went down and I took samples of marsh grasses and some of the things that would have grown in the environment there. But I went to Pensacola, Florida, and got tar balls off the beach, collected those, went to Barataria Bay with my brother-in-law, collected the goopy oil spill that was in the marsh there. Took it all home, did a series of prints of these. We did digital prints, but each one got a little addition of the offending oil, So we sold these, and the idea is I think a lot of the work, I think of it as like evidence. I think of it as like a testimonial. This particularly has a story. So the people that bought this piece now in their house say, oh, let me tell you about this. This is BP's Deepwater Horizon oil spill oil in here, So again, trying to kind of not let that go necessarily, but also make a sort of a lasting, I call it evidence, So I started using carbon-based materials and whatnot, with also the idea that, these carboniferous things that turn into petrochemicals, that turn into either something that's going to fuel us or possibly do damage to us. This haze that I kind of create, I think of it as like, it can be interpreted in some ways. It could be interpreted as like life force, chi, prana, ki, whatever, or some smoggy, something less savory, But again, to give it that sort of vitality and that kind of life, Let me take a tangent here because I'll forget. Because Alberta Street, this is like a homecoming because it's like, we had a time here, and it was really a crazy time. I mean, it was pretty Wild West. They were like, we dodged gunshots. I mean, I've had all kinds of crazy situations. But the artists just kind of went feral. We just kind of had, at one time, and might even still be, there were more murals and artworks, per square inch than probably anywhere, at least in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know elsewhere. But we kind of went crazy. We did bike racks, we did stuff on the rooftops, we did murals, and it wasn't just, fly-by-night graffiti stuff. It was, it was stuff. Usually April 1st, we would do something significant. We did the coming soon Starbucks signs that would be up and down the street. This piece here appeared, and I'm going to share this because we're going to probably do a launch of a few more of these because before I destroy the screen on that, wanted to make some more. But these appeared up and down the street on Killingsworth and Alberta. And it's kind of a testimonial to what used to be the historic red line practices that would be exclusionary for minorities and whatnot. And so kind of call attention to these more problematic aspects of Portland. And the reason I want to share this is that there were dozens of these up and they got taken down over time. But there's one left, and it's on the corner. It's on this block. It's on the corner. It's got stickers all over it. But I was like, oh, yeah, this is great. So anyway, yeah. So, and then one other thing, if you're in the neighborhood and you want to see, yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, let's pass it. Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. I'll read it and I'll pass it to you. In Portland's past, it says Portland's historic red line district. And we tried to recreate, I kind of worked with a city person who was couldn't officially work with me, but tried to indicate where, the Albina area, Alberta Street, where a lot of the practices of, in Portland's past, redlining practices created exclusionary zones for Negroes and Orientals by real estate, banking, and insurance companies. Agents could lose their licenses for crossing this color barrier. Now, urban gentrification displaces low-income families as the remaining affordable housing stock in this area disappears. And it's 4/1 of '02. So it's a pretty vintage fact. But anyway, so another piece that is still on the street, if you go to the building, I left it behind. The landlord said, yeah, fine. He called it the mother-in-law. I called it leap of faith. And it's a full-size skeleton doing a swan dive off of a step ladder. So if you walk and you look up at the Rexall building, you'll see this. It's still there, kind of taking a dive. But that kind of stuff, yeah, kind of. Well, the reason I mention this is artists kind of activate and are, valuable in sort of creating a vibrant ecosystem, and if you just kind of let them do what they want, and it saddens me because, as I mentioned in that thing, 20-something years ago, is that, the affordability of being able to be an artist and work in your neighborhood and whatnot is getting, the studio I'm in right now, I have to kind of keep it on the down low. It's kind of beige. It's not well adorned. Kind of have to keep it on the down low because, you make it fancy, you make it nice, you make it creative. It creates that allure. So I'm not necessarily, I don't know, I'm not poo-pooing the what do you call it? Well, it's just the natural order of things. But I feel like, as artists, we're encouraged to, not encouraged to, but our life cycle is that we kind of, we go to secure the beachhead, and then everybody kind of moves in, and then at some point we have to pick up our ruck and go to the next beachhead somewhere else. So I don't know where that beachhead is. Portland's kind of becoming very.
Developers will follow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's my landlord knew this. Magnus Johansson, who was my landlord at the time, he said, Brian, I'm gonna. One day you're going to have to go. But he knew what he was doing. He's trying to get as many artists into as many of his properties as he could, knowing that he was kind of seeding the SEED, not the area. So, and then one day he said, yes, your rent's going to triple. So, bye. So anyway, botanicals, I'm kind of botanically oriented, Again, I love life forms. I love this idea that we're part of this continuum of life and nature. I've got what do you call it? I think I mentioned that some of these small pieces are models for other things. There's a piece called Dilemma, and it's a pyramid with a tortoise shell on top. And it's actually a model for a larger scale public art piece that I would have liked to have done, whereby it would have been Galapagos tortoise sized and big thing, and the water would have come spilling out of the tortoise shell. But it represents the ideas about extinction and the dilemma of, endangered life and whatnot. Let's see, I've got a flame drawing around somewhere. That was, again, I was trying to think of like how I can think about these different durations. Like I mentioned, the public art, which is like, can be months and years and a lot of process. And then I think about this, which is more immediate, but there's still kind of a give and take of erasing and whatnot. And I kept thinking, how can I do this? So I'd make these things where I would put the way I would do those would put a piece of steel shape, and I'd put magnets on either side, and I'd put over my head, and then I would get on my back with my oxyacetylene torch and just make a big flame burst happen. And I just do drawings and do that thing with the idea that this is a flame drawing, but it's kind of, it ends up being an eclipse, it ends up being a whatever, but again, that kind of impact approach to it.
Sounds dangerous.
Yeah.
What kind of music has inspired you with your art?
Oh, wow. Wow, I don't know. I'm kind of all over the map. Anything from ambient Eric Satie and,
Anything? Is there anyone in particular, any artist? Nothing rings a bell? I'm a big music head.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm an older guy, so I don't know. Radiohead, Bjork, not a metalhead. No.
Metalhead?
Nah. Yeah, not. I was, but I don't know. My tastes, I don't know, change, I guess. But yeah.
Brian, who influenced you? I'm sure it changed. I mean, you as an established artist, you're your own influence. But who influenced you in the beginning? Because you were doing a lot of public stunts.
Yeah.
And then your artwork. So who influenced you when you were young?
Yeah, well, definitely at the time it was like, definitely like Chris Burden and some of the, Fluxus and a lot of the more performance action people. And I'll tell you, I mentioned Charlie Ray. If you get a chance, look at his work. The guy's, he's a madman. I mean, he would, the faculty, he came from Rutgers. He was a young guy. They brought him in. The faculty hated him because he was so wild and he wouldn't take a break. He would just go and piss in the studio sink in the middle of the night and just go back to work. And they hated him. But I learned more from that guy in terms of just process, and plus, he segued into using his body as an art form into making incredible. Now he does these like CNC routed stainless steel pieces. You've seen his work. When you see his work, you'll recognize it. So he was a big influence in terms of like creative process. And I think sometimes I can respond to an artist not necessarily in what they do, but how they do it, and like how their process and their thinking, and you can tell they're kind of reaching for something, you're reaching for that, And I think that, a noble try, to at least go for it, to try to be, I don't know, I'm still, I'm in my 60s, I'm still trying to find my voice. But I feel like, I'm trying these different conversations out, different levels, different audiences maybe. So, I don't know, influences.
R-I-G-G.
Oh, Ray, Charles Ray. Charles Ray, yeah. R-A-Y, yeah, Charles Ray. Yeah, and then of course, neon-wise, Stephen Antonakos. Keith Saunier is a pretty well-known artist, died a couple years ago. He was a Southern guy too, Louisiana artist. And I ended up making when I was in New Orleans with my neon shop there, I ended up fabricating his work. And so he would send me faxes. That's how long ago that was, right? He'd send me faxes of drawings with notes, this color, this configuration, this steel. And so I'd fabricate his work and for his latest show at the museum, or I did a streetcar stop for him down there that was a big multicolored thing, whatnot. So I've worked for different artists too in terms of my longevity, the longevity of my being able to sustain myself, So working with artists, fabricating. I love collaborating. The Zubon bike rack was done with Rankin, Vanessa Rennick back in the day. I did the Falls with local artist Adam Kuby. Love working collaboratively, love the synergy of working with more than just the sum of my mind, but yours and your, whatever.
Sometimes you fabricate for other artists, right?
Yeah. I'll do welding. I'll do repairs. I'll do. I do that. But I was thinking, you said we were talking earlier, and you said, "Well, I'm not an artist," and it's like I don't buy that, because I feel like I think Kumaraswamy, who said it's not that artists are special people; it's that each person is a special artist. So whether how you cook, how you garden, how you fix yourself, whatever, these are all creative acts and creative decisions that we make moment by moment. So in a way, we're all in this together. It's not like special guy or something, It's like we're kind of all in this flow of creativity. I like to do neighborhood level projects. I'm just going to cut a shout out because this is going to come in the fall. When they renamed Rosa Parks from Portland Boulevard, we went to City Council and we said, hey, can we do something Rosa Parks commemorative? And they said, okay, well, here, and here's $12,000 to do it with. That was 2007, I think. And I worked with any number of artists and arts councils and bureaucrats that try to make this go. And it's still not done yet. I've worked with fits and starts and whatnot, but we're almost there. R.V. Smith, who is a PNCA emeritus, I guess, recent Guggenheim Fellow, significant African-American artist, lives in my neighborhood, Piedmont neighborhood, did a drawing of Rosa Parks and a sort of a scene in the background. And then we're going to make sign caps that are going to go all the way up and down Rosa Parks Boulevard. They're done. It's 100 of them, powder coated, bright red. They're going to go like sign caps, Again, it's in the language of transportation. We had to kind of take it out of, I don't want to grouse about this too much, but some of the bureaus, particularly arts bureaus, were very unsupportive. And so we had to kind of take it out of something that smelled like public art and make it something that smelled more like infrastructure. And so that's how it's going to happen. So RV's going to get these things up. He's 80-something years old, 88 I think he turns this year. So we're trying to get it in his lifetime. But that'll happen in the fall. But it's taken multiple trips to City Council. It's taken a lot of Brian, you really shouldn't have done that, but it's gonna happen. But that kind of, again, activating the neighborhood and whatnot. And the last project I just want to tell you about is a mini forest that we're going to do along the sound wall of Rosa Parks and Deacom and the freeway. And we're going to start with doing soil inoculation, chip drops. We've got a remediation specialist who's going to, with each chip drop she's going to come in and do my fungal inoculation, and then we'll do. There were campsites there, there were fires, all kinds of crazy stuff. So we're going to try to create a long-term project and create a little mini forest there. And I've got an ODOT project manager who is very interested, caught her interest in potentially being able to replicate this along I-5 corridor to address the bad air, to address the sound, temperature, whatnot, and see if we can make that. So it's kind of a pilot project, kind of pie in the sky. I'll never probably live to see the mature Doug firs and white oaks, but got a whole bunch of different neighbors and specialists. We're going to do some air quality monitoring over time and see where that goes. So again, all these tentacles, Oh, please, yeah.
I have a question. So most of your work for public art is commissioned, right?
Usually, yeah.
Do you ever do anything big and then have someone comes to look and goes, I want this in my city? Or do you do everything mostly by commission? You don't start a piece and have someone come and look at it to
You mean like on spec?
Well, you build something just because you want to build it, and then someone comes by your studio and says, oh, I really like that. That would look great.
Oh, yeah. Right. Well, it depends. I've got 1,350 square foot studio, so to build big stuff is challenging. I usually have to be strategic about building in increments and storage and whatever. So I'll usually do those in forms of models and then try to do some representations or computer renderings and whatnot. Sometimes they'll see something like the piece in Kuwait, got in touch. I actually had a show at Jeffrey's Gallery at the time when they called and they said, hey, this Sheikh Abdullah Al Salem wants to do this thing for a cultural center, and he wants that piece right there, the piece at the Rose Quarter. And I said, well, I don't really want to do that piece. Give me a chance to like come up with something. And so I riffed on that and used the same solar array idea, but we made those out of surgical stainless steel because it's in the Persian Gulf and salt water.
Yeah, one thing is to talk about these extraordinary notebooks and record keeping that he has. And so when we got this call from Kuwait saying we wanted to do something like the Silicon Forest down at the Rose Garden, Brian did all this research and came up with the name of a desert flower. That was like, you really had to deep dive to figure this out. And then he named the project on this flower. Now, I thought after this, that's all he'd be doing for the rest of his life is making these incredible public art things. I mean, they're gorgeous, but it's really hard, and he keeps working at it and working at it. The neon, the public art, these are gorgeous. And may I just say, these prices are great. So look at those carefully. These are so beautiful because they're both conceptual in that they are environmental pieces, but they're also beautiful. So they're kind of pretty, not pretty. It's kind of a thing I like, wabi-sabi thing. So, I mean, and then also the color. This is sort of a recent thing. They were always black, oily, and this is kind of a marble dust. He's not talking about it's powdered marble, so it has a soft. See how the light is absorbed in this can? It's not reflecting at all. So the oil sort of bleeds a little bit. Anyway, I think he's one of Oregon's, Northwest America's great artists.
Wow, thanks for the plug. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, well, actually, Jeffrey, I think that's worth noting because what I tried to do, I was having a good time with the paper, but paper is paper and it's hard to wrangle and it buckles and it'll tear and whatnot. So I wanted to get something as absorbent as I could, so I made this special ground. It's like a polyvinyl acetate, some white pigment, titanium dioxide, and then marble dust. And then if I sand it, it kind of opens the pores, so it became as fresco-like as possible, almost like working on a plaster surface. So it really kind of sucks in.
Did you use a medium with it, or is it just raw dust?
Well, the medium is PDA is the medium. It's a PDA, polyvinyl acetate. Yeah, so I mix it up in a blender and looks like a milkshake, and multiple coats and sanded, and then kind of coming in. So it kind of has that paper-like absorbent kind of quality to it, But yeah, I try to be minimal with the color, just maybe a little touch of color here and there, Yeah.
I want to add one last thing. As someone who has his work, has lived with his work, has represented his work, and has advocated for it, is that it's a very frustrating artist to work with because I always have clients for these beautiful works on paper, on canvas. When we did our show recently, he didn't deliver on any of that. He did a whole nother bunch of stuff. And so for an art dealer, it can be quite, it's really tricky because you want to have you do have things you have to sell, and you want something that's emblematic. And Brian certainly, you will see his pieces in the museums, you'll say, oh, that's Brian Borrello's work. But yeah, you can be very frustrating to work with, and because you have so many interests, and you're a curious guy, you're off neon, or building another skeleton, and we had all those sculptures. You got into powder coated something, and that was all.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm an addict. Yeah.
Also, one thing I would add that's cool is about your work is like I'm his daughter, and I've grown up going to coffee shops with me like almost every weekend of my life, and he you can see the sketchbook on the chair right there. He has like volumes and volumes and volumes of like black moleskins where all of the ideas on the walls, all of the ideas that he's done start in his sketchbook, and like everywhere we go he carries it in his arm, or like on like a coffee shop napkin, and it's just like fun to like, I don't know, be super caffeinated and like talk about ideas, and like he's always like sketching his idea, and then it's like, it's gonna be huge, but it all starts in there.
Yeah.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, yeah, my sketchbook, it's I was doing a residency in Seattle did a Portland, what do you call it, a trail plan, public art for the regional trails, 120 miles of trails, Burke-Gilman Trail, Snoqualmie Trail, for public art and design along the trail. And so I had an office in the Parks and Rec department, and it was just like, it was like Parks and Rec, the show. It was crazy. It had, all those icons were there. They were, But anyway, I'm walking into the building, and I see this guy walking. It's downtown, like what is it, the downtown area. And there's this guy who's loading up a full-size cross onto his car to take it away. I guess he was walking around with his cross. And I'm just walking down the street, and of course, like I got my sketchbook as usual. And he goes, "Hey, got your sword?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, and I guess he thought it was my Bible, because I think that's what Christians in the Bible. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, it's my sword. That's my sword. So anyway, but it's really my brain, that's where I keep my thoughts, So yeah.
Is there any other questions?
I just have a question. So you can see the environmental themes through your work, and I think of this as the materials that you're using, and as if it's coming from a tar bed or coated in tar. And you mentioned that, some of the things about the climate or our destruction, when you talk about that being from Exxon, right? Was
BP. Exxon's another offender, but go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, BP.
Yeah.
BP. So do you incorporate any writing into some of along with your work, or is it?
Not usually.
Not usually.
I'm kind of an image guy. Again, I don't want to sound ornery, but like I said, the human experience, I feel, is so dominant to the point of not a healthy thing. We're so unconnected, and the lack of empathy for other living things really disturbs me. And so I feel like, other artists can do portraits and, but the human story, I feel like we're the human story, and we bring it to the art in some way. I don't know.
I feel like you got the power of icon. The power of icon. Each piece is powerful on its own.
I wonder if also you're asking is really a question a lot of people ask, which is how, if you didn't know what you were looking at, would you get the full benefit? How much is the art statement important, and how much do you need to know the intellectual thinking? And I think what Brian's done very cleverly is he addresses in just the materials when he puts the label up. People are always like, why does he get this effect? And they see motor
Motor realm, I saw
and
that.
they're like,
Yeah.
whoa. And that usually,
Yeah.
but when I represent his work, I don't say, spiel.
Right.
Let the work come to the person. And they'll, if they're interested, they'll proceed.
The motor oil changes to that color though after it's been used, so it's used motor oil too.
Yeah, it's dirty.
Yeah, it's a little funky.
But then, that's like this is a brand new piece, this 9 foot. That would be in a museum, it's a museum piece. By adding the color to it, it makes it even more hideous. It becomes a fantasy. It's a oil soaked, but it's hopeful too. The color adds a bright, same with this is a new piece with the little florets. Fascinating.
Kind of think of it as I don't say this a lot, but it's kind of a deadly beauty. That I try to make it beautiful, but also something a little, I don't know, dark? Well, it is dark. Dark on light, yeah.
How do you protect yourself from the products that you use?
Well, they're just modest amounts. I'm not loading it up. And, there's, I wear respirators. No, I don't like it. No, I'm actually, no. And artists are kind of canaries in the coal mine. And I'll tell you, again, this is another sort of back to the neighborhood idea, but on the corner was an older guy, chemist. He was an old Austrian Jewish chemist who worked on the corner. I think there's a botanical shop there now. Actually, the botanical shop, and he had a huge studio space. And he worked for Gamblin doing pigments and whatnot.
He was their chemist, their color chemist.
Yeah. He was awesome. Leo was awesome. And he would call me and say, "Hey, Brian, come on over. I got something for you, And I'd go over and he would give me try this out. He was like, because he knew that artists were killing themselves by cadmiums and leads and all this kind of stuff. So he was trying to create these. his thing was like, he was pretty well known. Hollywood would have him, call him up and say, we need blah, 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 and he would create the paint that would go on the helicopters to make the black helicopters that would hose off at the end of the day, you know. So he was doing all this kind of really cool stuff. Anyway, he was giving me all these things. So a lot of my experiments were Leo inspired, you know. And unfortunately, Leo passed away, but he was doing the right thing and trying to help artists survive and not kill themselves by making all these toxic. So I had a health event in 2004, enclosed in my shop, middle of winter. I was working with some mold rubbers, and mold rubbers have inside of them the flexible quality of it is what is it called? PCBs, PBAs, BPA, bisphenol A. Bisphenol A is the plasticizers when you get into your new car and you smell that smell and everything's all kind of oily and smell, and then over time it vaporizes and it cracks and cracks. So that's the BPA. That's a notorious endocrine disruptor. And I was working with this material in my shop and had a health event where I started breaking out in like little dots all over the place, and then my platelet count went almost to zero. They gunned me with immunoglobulins and steroids, and it was really close. I came back to life, but after that, that was my come my moment. And so really clean, green, you know, really careful, respirator, you know, gloves, don't let stuff permeate, you know. So yeah, so I'm pretty conscious about that. Yeah.
Good to know.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Ali.
So given the message that's deeply embedded in the work, have you done things to distribute and make that available to the very younger generations of schools and art schools and the like?
Yeah. The process or the
message.
The message.
How that message can be incorporated into something as pleasing as what you're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I probably need a parallel life body to do that, you know. I've worked in the schools. I used to, I've worked in schools, taught, I've done workshops and whatnot. But I don't know. I think of the art as maybe sending out that message, you know, kind of like dandelion puffs that might land, might grow somewhere. But no, I haven't really done kind of a full saturation of young.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking that in the context of this generation being so into momentarily, available, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You can't call it artwork. And they respond to those things, but do they ever get a chance to sit and listen to somebody to explain the issues of it?
Talk about Gen Zers.
Yeah.
Well, they're invited.
Yeah.
They're all invited.
Well, I think about that and how to reach out. I think what I'm trying to do is lead by example, maybe, because I'm dedicated to the meat world. I'm dedicated to this. You know, I feel like there's some toxic qualities to this that we somehow need to make sense of, because this is a conveyance, and this being sort of glued to our consciousness now is going to be very bad. So I feel like if the more making, the more experiential, in the flesh and blood experience and not a mediated experience, I think is going to be really important. So that's why that's why I make experiences like this. I don't make a lot of content, I'll put pictures out there, but they're only this big, right? So to have some kind of immersive quality, some, like I said, the public art where you can go walk amongst and stub your toes on or something like that. So I don't know, I kind of ply my trade in what I call the meat world, of human experience, and not really fascinated by. I can see where it's going with ChatGPT and digital content being created, and it's going to be a wild world, and pretty mind-blowing stuff. But I don't know.
It's a full-time job, unfortunately, to create these Instagrammable I think something Brian's could do that, but he would never be the stiff, He'd be like every other influencer trying to sell you something, so.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. But I appreciate what you're saying, because like, yeah, how to communicate broadly and not just preaching to the choir or something, you know. Yeah.
And bringing the younger generations into places like this, into your studio, those are
I try.
I have an idea that they need to make an HGTV series on how to go buy art and galleries, just not unlike they taught people how to do, you know, interior paintings. So why can't we have an HGTV made for TV going into artist studios, not unlike Artbeat here, but nationwide. I really think what the problem is we're so disconnected from the artists and how artists make. This kind of takes away some of the mystery. You finally get to see the artists and hear them talk. I just don't see enough of it. I think Artbeat is one of those things that I'd like
There
to
is
see.
a series, national series, on it exists in public broadcasting called Cinema 21,
Oh, okay.
or Art 21, which
Oh, yes, I have seen it.
follows all
Yeah.
different artists, in-depth studio things. But again, the museum here, the Portland Art Museum, in its very conscious effort to try and get my kids, for example, to become a member of the museum, have done something very radical, which you may have heard about. They have a place over, they rehabilitated an old porn theater in the East Side on Division called the Center for the Untold Tomorrow, Cut. And basically it's a portal for younger people to come and have a movie and bingo nights or drawing or collage.
That's cool.
But to get them in through that portal, so they'll go to Grandma's Museum, which is still how a lot of kids look at museums. You know, how to use a museum. Go in, pee, and see one thing and leave. I mean, that's how you use a museum. You don't go and slog through it. It's a terrible thing to do. So, you know, like a library card, you should have a museum card and just use it like a museum it is. But it's interesting. You're absolutely right. This is every art gallery and museum is struggling with how do we get, you know, kids who think they are with a phone, they're a perfectly competent artist with that. They don't, you know. Anyway, it's a maturing process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any other questions?
Sorry.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and thank you. I think you're going to take home one of my things. The PDX Skyline pieces back there. That's an addition. I think I did 100, but each one is individually. I give attention to each one, so each one is kind of a unique.
It's like in print terms, it's an EV.
Yeah.
Variable edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like Donna would always say, we'll continue to have these as long as people show up.
Well,
And then we're here.
These
So.
little roof pieces are,
Thank you,
I
Jeffrey.
begged you for them, never saw them until today.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank y'all. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thanks to the.